control of me, and oh, get in the brain again. I'll get you in the brain again.
So music for me, I think like for a lot of people, started out as a hobby. I came from a family of musicians on my mom's side. She and my uncle were rock and rollers in the 80s in New York. Nothing really happened with that, so I sort of took it as a cautionary tale. And I moved to the city, a couple of years ago at this point, and it was just always a hobby. I was working with someone in Harlem. We were just doing some fun songwriting here and there. And then I met Fat Matt of Cool Company, who produced a lot of the tracks, including Waste My Time. And I started to, sit on this pile of work that didn't really go anywhere because it was just a hobby. But when the Grammys came to New York I don't remember the year, but they did come to the city. And I ended up by chance meeting a major label A&R who checked out my stuff. And it was really the first time that someone really told me that it is something I should try, that there was something there. And, I also took that with a grain of salt, which is why it took me so many years to put out my stuff. But I did listen to that person's advice, and I started utilizing opportunities that I had in front of me and seeking new ones to get into writing sessions, recording, building my catalog with different producers between Los Angeles, New York, Mexico City. And so I have a lot of stuff that I was still really hesitant to release. And honestly, it was only until a couple months ago with the release of my track Lemonade that I really decided, I'm going full force, and I'm just excited to see what's next. I think that's awesome that you guys think it's a relatable New York track. Because when I recorded it with Fat Matt of Cool Company, and it was really focused on the melody at the beginning. I had, an idea to manipulate the recorded audio of British school children singing the melody idea I had, which Matt painstakingly made a reality, and from there we just built. But, lyrically, I don't think things really came about until, we really started building out the entirety of the track. And it's not the deepest song I've written. If you look at the chorus, it's really simple. A lot of my future tracks are super deep, heavier, but I think for me at least, the whole point of the song was creating a moment of escapism, a party anthem that kind of reminded me of like D-Light and the the fun scenes of Party Monster, and all of these New York City glam 90s quirky times. And I think, of course the video is super New York centric, but listening to it now, I think especially when New York's been in quarantine and so much stuff has been going on, that it is kind of this little dose of escapism. I mean, I know that's why I listen to pop a lot of the time, is because it's something that you can feel rather than think, and I tend to overthink stuff. So that's sort of what makes it relatable to me, and I would imagine other people. So if it's 3 in the morning and you've been out dancing all night with your friends in the East Village, and the only thing you want is some fries, go to Ray's Candy Store. Ray's is part of that iconic old school New York City feeling. I think it's been around since the late 70s, early 80s, don't quote me on it. Run by this one guy, Ray Alvarez. He still works there, and I think he's in his 80s. But that whole area of Alphabet City, you get that vibe of where all these iconic artists were creating, where Madonna was really building her own work, waiting tables, dancing. there's just this energy that still exists there, even though New York is definitely a collective now of high-rise, overpriced apartment buildings. But yeah, the story itself in the video is centered on this anti-tourism guidebook to New York City, which my best friend Joel and I follow. So rather than places like the Empire State Building, Times Square, which you really honestly never should want to go to, it just talks about feelings and people. We have chapters like Give Back to the People, Stop Acting Your Age. It kind of, for me, sets up an adventure that's modeled off of my own experiences of meeting people both incredible and honestly sometimes terrible. New York attracts so many people from so many parts and walks of life, that I don't think I would have experienced anywhere else. So I try to translate that in my video, my own story, my own adventure. And yeah, it's pretty true, I think, to in a very dramatic way, even though my time in New York has been dramatic, um, that I hope people can connect with. I think that's great that you guys think people will connect with the track. Lyrically, it's not my most substantial song, but it's definitely one that I think would resonate with people in that kind of carefree, I don't want to think about anything right now way, which I know that's sort of what I've been feeling lately. But yeah, 9 times out of 10, I start my tracks thinking about the lyrics. So a lot of my upcoming songs, including my next single, Feel Do I Have Anyone, tackles these heavier topics. And for me, it's like if someone hears a track and there's just one line that reminds them of something in their own life that they can connect and relate to, then I feel like the song's done its job. And sometimes I guess it doesn't really have to be that deep, like the song. Yeah, so like I mentioned before, this is really the first full track I ever made. It is an older track, but yeah, it really kind of happened when I connected with Fat Matt of Cool Company, who I mentioned produced the track primarily. We were working out of a small studio in Bushwick, Brooklyn. I'd go there every couple of weeks. We'd record. And with each session, the song built itself out a little more. We were doing a lot of kind of experimental, quirky things like manipulating audio of, British school children singing and throwing in weird Foley from computer startup noises that you might recognize. Yeah, we just sort of built, and it was a fun process. It took a while. But with each session, with each time I took the train back to my apartment, I heard the progress we made, and it just kept me going. And then, you reach a point where you're like, I think it's done. And yeah, when we reached that point, I was pretty shocked because it was the first thing that I made that sounded like something I wanted to create. And it's definitely different than a lot of my upcoming tracks. It's an older production, so the sound is different than what I'm going to be releasing. But for me, when I hear the production and I hear the grit and I hear all of the natural sounds in there, it reminds me of just working in that basement studio and how important that was to me. And it also reminds me of how far my music's come since recording that, and how it honestly was never really supposed to be released, but here we are. The video, filming it, planning it, it was an adventure to say the least. All the fun that we're having in that video, all of the grumpiness in the subway and the anger on the roof, that was 100% real, because it was myself, my best pal Joel, the incredible cinematographer Mateusz Bradan, and an assistant, and a ton of extras. You know, a lot of places that we blocked out, like the restaurants, which we reserved, but then a lot of things that were kind of a quick shot. I don't want to say like, you know, we didn't have permission for everywhere we shot, but you know, you do what you can when you're starting out. But yeah, I think it was an adventure, you know. I mean, when we shot, for example, the bridge video, the dance video with Joel, where he's seducing the waiter, that was supposed to be an empty restaurant. And lo and behold, it was full of customers, and it was just everyone laughing at us. But you know, he pushed through and persevered, and somehow in that restaurant was the guitarist for Jackson Brown, who kind of co-signed, and he was like, "This is pretty good." And yeah, there's so many like little mini stories like that. Getting kicked out of a pinball arcade that we tried to stealthily shoot in, to the lighting the book of X's and hookups on fire on top of a friend's roof. That was also pretty pretty intense. But yeah, we managed to get all these shots, and we were left with all this footage. And something I didn't realize about music videos was that even if you somehow, by the grace of God, managed to pull off shooting all these different scenes, and having a solid cinematographer, the glue to any good music video is its editor and colorist. So, you know, I was extremely lucky to connect with Jen Kennedy of LAM Edit, and Ollie Rillins, who did the coloring. Jen's done everyone from Katy Perry to the 1975, and specializes in narrative video. And I was very grateful because I guess she liked my track, and happened to be able to squeeze me into her busy schedule. And she brought this story to life. So many people doubted that this was actually possible to create a narrative music video with so many different shots in a couple of minutes, but she saw that vision. And yeah, without all the people in that video and all the craziness, I don't think it would have turned out the way it did. So on the days that I am creative and I do feel like I'm able to write and make music, I think what's keeping me motivated is the time that I've had and the space that I've had to really process different things that have happened in my life, to be able to write songs about, or to really, you know, work on my understanding of melodies and chord progressions and how to build a better track. But at the same time, you know, there's some days where I just can't stay focused and I can't stay motivated. And I think that's okay, because on the days that I have been creative, I feel like I've been able to really get pen to paper and create some tracks that I'm really excited to record when this whole thing, you know, gets a little better, hopefully. There's so much music that I listen to that I think creeps its way into my own tracks and inspires my own music. I would say foundationally, as embarrassing as it is, I listen to a lot of yacht rock. A lot of people like to insultingly call it dad rock, but that would be Hall & Oates, Steely Dan, Bjorn and Barnes. The list goes on and on. And then I listen to a lot of R&B. In my opinion, D'Angelo is one of the greatest songwriters of all time. And then there's the 90s musicians like Rosie Vella, Dee Light, Jane Child, that kind of female empowerment in music that I try to put in my own tracks. And then I would say there's this whole wave of new pop artists who are not your conventional pop artists, redefining what that genre means, like Doreen Electra, King Princess, Rina Sawayama, Brockhampton. They're doing things with pop music that have made me feel a little bit of freedom in my own writing, to just take the parameters off a little bit and make things that are still pop but are a little bit different. My plan is to hopefully try and release a new track every month. My next single is called Feel Do I Have Anyone? Has an incredible visual component by dancer Aimphus. She's really brought the song to life, and it's definitely different genre-wise. It's a little more soulful. So yeah, in addition to releasing new tracks, trying out new genres, I just want to get better with writing and better with instrumentation and just improve. And yeah, I'm excited to create more songs and videos and just see what people like and what I like. Yeah, so you can hit me up on Instagram. It's at Hey Carly Shea. I'm on Spotify, more importantly. Same thing, my name, Carly Shea. And yeah, I'm going to be putting out more stuff, so keep a close eye out. I'm also on Twitter, but I don't really know how to use that, so if you have tips, let me know. But otherwise, yeah, definitely gonna keep putting out more stuff, so keep an eye out.
I can't explain. You take control